SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
I'm Steve Azar, and I'm on the other side of the microphone, meaning I'm asking the questions this time, and oh, have mercy for the airwaves. I spent 20 years in Music City, wrote and made some hits, traveled the world, and then moved my family back to the birthplace of American music and where the magnolia trees prosper. And now every time I put my feet on Mississippi soil, when I'm off the road, well, I'm at peace. On this show, it's all about hearing the stories straight from the mouths of the friends I've made along the way, their journey to success. Heck, there might be someone on, I don't even know, but you know how us Mississippi types are. We tend to take well to new company. In a Mississippi Minute, all 60 of them. I'm Steve Azar.
It's just like that muddy river, moving slow. Ain't no worries, it's how life goes, baby. In a Mississippi Minute. That's right.
Hey folks, time for another In a Mississippi Minute. Steve Azar here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Well into my 8th year, about to slip into number 9. What are we going to do for our 10th anniversary if I make it that far? Visit Mississippi.org has allowed me to stay on airwaves for so long on SuperTalk. I appreciate them so much. Please check it out. We're going to be in Oxford, Mississippi today talking to a heck of a filmmaker, a documentary maker, great career. Excited about sharing him with you in a second. But go to visit Mississippi.org. Check out Oxford. Wonderful college towns we have around the state. Pretty dang cool. All right, my guest today wears many, many hats. He serves as the clerk of court for the U.S. District Court in the Northern Mississippi District. He's a former United States Marshal who spent 12 years with the U.S. Justice Department before joining the court. He's also an author, a heck of a filmmaker, and philanthropist. I need to be able to say that. On top of his career working with the Mississippi government, he produced several crazy great documentaries and films, including The Toughest Job, William Winters, Mississippi, which won a regional Emmy for Best Historical Documentary. Another one of his films, Unrivaled, Sewanee 1899, aired on PBS nationwide and was nominated for an Emmy. He co-produced a film on a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Eudora Welty, incredible, which aired on Mississippi Public Broadcasting. He recently completed a film titled Force of Nature, the Bob Dunlap story, which chronicles the life of a legendary conservationist, I'll get that right, philanthropist and businessman, the power of editing. He serves as a producer for the 8-part series Tallahatchie, which I was blessed to be a part of, which airs on MPB in 2026. His current project is a film on the iconic whiskey speech written by Judge Soggy Sweat. His book, The Mississippi Book of Quotations, now is in his 3rd printing. That's not easy. He's an avid mountain climber and has submitted some of the world's tallest mountains. They are not in Mississippi. In the early 1980s, he hiked the entire Natchez Trace for the National Geographic Book Division. He is believed to be the first person to hike the entire Natchez Trace since the early 1800s. That's a long time ago. Let's get to it right now with the man, the filmmaker, author, philanthropist, and court clerk, David Cruz. What's up, David?
Nothing to it, brother. How are you, Steve?
I'm really good. I'm stumbling, but the beauty of my show is I get to edit before anybody hears the stumble. But you love it. Are you in Oxford right now?
I am in Oxford right now.
You're in your office, I see.
Yeah, I am. I live out in the country, about 5 miles outside of Oxford. Oxford's so civilized these days. They make me live out in the county. I live out there with my bride and 4 dogs and a cat. I'm in good shape out there with that crew of critters. I like to say almost any stray in North Mississippi ends up at my house at one time. All my dogs are strays that have wandered up and needed support, and my bride and I brought them in. Of course, my bride is a stray in a sense. I brought her in from Texas.
You better watch it.
I call her my stray from Texas. No, actually, I'm her stray. I'm awful lucky to have captured that woman.
I didn't go quite as far as you did to go get your bride. I got mine in Arkansas, and I always say I stole her, and she, in the middle of the night, took her over the Mississippi River Bridge, and the rest is history. So it's been a blessing. Okay, so all roads for you are a lot of roads. I want to go back and dig in your past growing up. What were you into that eventually led you to making documentary films?
Well, I've always just been so impressed with Mississippi's writers, Mississippi's songwriters, musicians. Our state is just legendary, and the sweep, the significance, the power of our writers and musicians and civil rights advocates and athletes and our actors. It's just legendary. And so the aim of so many of my films have been focused on, like Eudora Welty, like Bob Dunlap, this incredible businessman and conservationist who owns a 12,000-acre island in the Mississippi River just a bit north of Greenville, where you are. And so I just love rich, powerful stories. And so, and when I stumble across one, I want to share it, and I want to explore it and bring it to life on film. And I did the same thing essentially with the book I put together, the Mississippi Book of Quotations, which is, over 2,000 great, insightful, powerful lines by Mississippi's writers and musicians and athletes and others, and divided into 75 different categories. The things that life is all about, love, humility, and all the rich, powerful things about life, lying, truth-telling, everything that makes up the lives that we live, for better or for worse.
Were you a history buff growing up as a kid? You liked history?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was reading Shelby Foote before Shelby Foote was, Ken Burns made Shelby Foote into Shelby Foote. Wow. In fact, I interviewed Shelby Foote one time at his office, his little library in Memphis, Tennessee. Of course, he's from Greenville originally, and got to interview him up there. And he told me, he said, I was doing good right up to the time that Ken Burns put me in his film, and he described what had happened to him after that film came out. He said, I got thrust into the vortex of praise, and I love that, the vortex of praise.
That's a tough place to be.
He said, I can't get away from people anymore, and I love my privacy so I can write. So, I was reading Shelby Foote back as a youngster, reading the Civil War trilogy and reading his novel Shiloh. I'll tell you a great line from the novel Shiloh. There's an episode in there where this soldier is wounded at the Battle of Shiloh, and he goes. His captain sends him to the rear to seek medical treatment. And this wounded soldier shows back up at the front a few minutes later and says, Captain, give me a gun. This battle ain't got no rear. And so I've always been just eat up with history and rich storytelling.
For me, it was always my English and literature teachers and my history teachers. And maybe I was built a lot like you, that I was interested in poetry and interested in just history because they were real life stories that you and I, you making documentaries, I'm a songwriter. There was something, I guess, maybe in both of our DNAs that allowed us to be more attractive to those subjects. But I love the teachers that taught growing up. They are my most memorable. They're huge, and they stick in my mind. I think about them all the time, and I think they had a lot to do with shaping me as a songwriter. Do you feel like you had some of those teachers along the way that you can recall that go, oh man, what a difference maker they've made in where I am today?
Brother, you're exactly right. I think back to a teacher I had at Oxford High School, back when Oxford High School was just a small school, back when, I grew up in Oxford when Oxford was just a village of 4,000 people. And, today it is not a village any longer. But I had a teacher, an English teacher named Oliette Cerny, Ms. Cerny, and she loved two things. She loved Shakespeare, and she loved Julius Caesar. And literally she would bring a birthday cake. She would bring a birthday cake in whenever it was, she said it was, William Shakespeare's birthday. We would celebrate, but she taught about life and she taught about literature in a really compelling way.
Wow. I love it. We're with David Cruz, the filmmaker. I've got a buddy, Chef David Cruz. These guys don't mess around when they create. Just incredible. I want to talk about his new documentary he's working on called Whiskey Speech. I can't wait to be a small part of that. My dad opened the first illegal liquor store in Mississippi. Visit Mississippi.org. We're talking Oxford, Mississippi, talking hotty toddy. I'm Steve Azar. We'll be right back.
We're gonna reach the light, but it's a hard road, baby, that we're moving on down tonight.
Listen and watch all your favorite SuperTalk Mississippi shows live and on demand. Listen to tons of music. Plus, get the latest breaking news from across the state with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Download the SuperTalk app on your iPhone or Android device now for free. Just search SuperTalk Mississippi in your app store on your mobile device to get everything Mississippi all in one place. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Get it now.
Hey, this is Bob just walking.
Love my time so far. This is the guest that I get to sit back and relax. I'm drinking my Diet Coke right now. He's got so much incredible information and passion for Mississippi, for making films and documentaries, for celebrating who we are. Visit Mississippi.org. Another treasure he is. Visit Mississippi.org. Celebrates folks like my guest today, David Cruz. Check him out. Plan a road trip. We're up there around Oxford, Mississippi right now. He's been kicked out of the city limits like I've been kicked out of Nashville. All my friends have been kicked out of Nashville, all my hit songwriting friends. That's what we say. They still say they live in Nashville, but they're 60 miles away, and I'm going like, you can't say you're in Nashville when you're living in Alabama. But they still refused. I'm going like, you're not making any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You don't even have Tennessee tags anymore. But, oh no, I'm still in Nashville because I still go to work there. And I said, there's no Music Row, so where are you going? Anyway, it's funny. I love to make the joke that my traffic are tractors now. David, is that your case as well?
It is. In fact, and I have a tractor. I got 275 acres of land just 5 miles from Oxford. So I have the best of both worlds.
No push mower?
No, I don't have a push mower, but I can tell you a great push mower story before this is over. Back when I was 13 years old and digging graves at the Oxford St. Peter's Cemetery and mowing the lawn with a push mower. And this is back in the days before weed eaters. And so to go around all the gravestones in that big cemetery, me and my buddy would go around with old fashioned medieval scythes and
No
get the
way.
grass around the tombstone. So I know a little bit about push mowers and other ancient implements.
If that doesn't make you a creative person, nothing will. I mean, come on, hard work. We've always believed in that. All my songwriter pals always believe hard work pulls out the creativity because you just don't want to do that forever. All right. So the Whiskey Speech documentary, I see my buddy and publisher Neil White in there. I see my pal Marty Stewart. Talk to me about the inspiration behind that, and when do we look forward to being able to view it?
So I plan to have it out this spring. In fact, it'll premiere at the Overby Center on the Ole Miss campus on March 25th. But the inspiration for it is just like so much else that I stumble across. When I first read the Whiskey Speech, I just said, man, this is something powerful. This is something special. And to me, it's called a speech, Steve, but it's really not a speech. It's just really powerful, deft, riveting storytelling. And it works at so many levels. Everybody who knows the Whiskey Speech thinks of it as a piece of humor, and it is very humorous. But there's so much else going on. There's so many layers to it. There's a religious element to it. There's a historical element to it. There's hypocrisy going on. There's interesting linguistics going on in it, and And then it's a story about human nature, because some people are enriched by a certain amount of drink, and some people are harmed and sometimes destroyed by too much liquor.
Sure, yeah.
And so Judge Sweat was dealing with all these different dimensions and dynamics in this very deftly crafted speech. And in fact, the great conservative New York Times columnist William Safire put it in he collected a book called Lend Me Your Ears, which was a collection of all the greatest speeches ever delivered through history, from Pericles to Churchill to Lincoln, and it includes Soggy Sweat's whiskey speech. And so I wanted to explore in this film. I want to explore all these different dimensions and what's going on in that powerful piece. It's a piece of literature, Steve. It's just a piece of literature.
I love it. I was watching some of your, the short you sent me about it, and I'm cracking up because it's so real. A lot of the same folks that were complaining about it were the ones doing the drinking. It's just so hilarious. That's the hypocrisy part of it that you talk about. And it is entertaining because now we're so far removed from it. A lot of the stuff that you probably couldn't talk about in the past, it's just funny as heck now, And David, there's no chance you and I are talking right now if it's not for my dad opening the first legal liquor store in Mississippi and me walking behind there as a kid and falling in love with Eugene Powell. And that moment, it was my moment of change my life. One moment changed my entire life. And I'm going like, how could that be? And there were no musical people in my family that they can trace back. And so it was through the something in the water. It was, I didn't have it in my DNA, but somehow it was injected to me that moment in time. And I fell in love with it, and I love it as much as ever now. And it's interesting what happens growing up in Mississippi. For you, growing up in Mississippi, if say you grow up in Minnesota or you grow up in Michigan, it's cold up there anyway. So do you feel like Mississippi's played a pivotal role in all of this that you're doing?
To me, Mississippi, we're so blessed and lucky to be in Mississippi because this state is the heart and soul of literature and of music. I mean, it doesn't get any more powerful than the writing and the songwriting that is bubbled up out of our state. I mean, it is rich, it's compelling. It deals with all the powerful insights about love, about life, about loves and about, fear and failure and humor and religion and the law and the blues and drinking and death and endurance. These are the things that our writers like William Faulkner and Eudora Welty and Larry Brown and Walker Percy from Greenville, your hometown, and Shelby Foote. These are the things that they wrestle with and bring their stories to life and teach us and motivate us and inspire us. And you see that in the music that bubbles up out of our state. You see that in the literature that bubbles up out of our state. And you will not find another state that even comes even close to what Mississippi has produced.
Do you think?
And it's always inspired me. It's always motivated me. And I've always tried to dig deep into our writers and our musicians.
You think because of so much of this is spawned from despair and the history that we, had, and I always feel like as a songwriter, and maybe you tell me, elaborate as a filmmaker, and when you're creating and writing your documentaries and trying to figure all that out, I always feel like the pain and the hurt and the wrong is the best stuff in the world to talk about, but you can still offer hope and you can see the silver lining. And I think that that's what I learned best from Little Milton and Eugene Powell and Sonny, Sam Chapman and so many others. They always seem to have a silver lining in that pain.
Yeah, I could agree with you more. It's our challenges that leads to creativity, I think. Mississippi is an enigma in so many ways. I mean, we're undeniably, we've always been the poorest state in the union. But we're also undeniably the richest state in the union when it comes to writing, when it comes to lyrics, when it comes to storytelling. While we might have, through much of our history, been financially poor, we're just immeasurably rich, with the words and the great literature and the great songwriting that is this state has produced and the talent that the state has produced. Not only in those areas, but man, look at the athletes that we've produced.
It's ridiculous.
From Archie Manning to Cool Papa Bell, just all, to Dizzy Dean, on and on and on. And in so many areas, I think the challenges that we face growing up in the state lead to that focus, that creativity, and have made the state the rich, compelling state that it is.
Let's take a quick break. I think rural areas allow you to dream big, and being in small towns allows that as well. It confronts you, and at some point you think the world is yours, and that's what it's Mississippi. Visit Mississippi.org. Loves bringing in folks from all over the world to showcase exactly what you and I are talking about. Check Visit Mississippi.org out. David Cruz is my guest today. Incredible filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker. We'll be right back. I'm Steve Azar.
I don't know why I'm laughing, 'cause it sure ain't funny. There's too much money at the end of the money. End of the money. I'm still trying to find my way.
Up to $20,000 available for first-time home buyers. Hey folks, Steve Azar here. Helping is the heart of our friends at Guarantee Bank. They offer programs like the Home Buyer Equity Leverage Partnership Grant that can assist qualified first-time home buyers with up to $20,000 towards down payment and provide home ownership counseling to empower you on your journey. These funds are first come, first served. Learn more about this program and to apply now, go to gbtonline.com. Guarantee Bank, member FDIC.
From the Seabrook
In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When you've done all you need to do, and you've had more trouble than you can use, and you've painted every
Having a lot of fun right
road
now
that you can
with documentary filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker, Emmys all over the place. David Cruz, not Chef David Cruz from the Delta, who I spent a lot of time working with. This is a different David Cruz. And actually, he was the first David Cruz because you're just a tad older than the chef, because we're both older than him, I can tell you. Anyway, visit Mississippi.org, celebrates our incredible culinary chefs. We got some Michelin star, a lot of folks that were recognized as Michelin star. They didn't get the stars in Mississippi. We got fantastic artists making great food. Travel Mississippi, go to visit Mississippi.org. David Cruz is my guest today. So David, Swanee. Let's talk about that documentary. You know, and when you went and made this, how in depth do you go? And you were a part of this fabric, right?
Well, I grew up in Mississippi, grew up here in Oxford. Actually, I was born down in Brookhaven, grew up in Oxford. My dad was a professor at Ole Miss, taught 19th and 20th century British literature at Ole Miss. And so I grew up here. But my dad thought I was such a wild child, I got into so much mischief growing up. My dad thought it would be good for me to leave Oxford and go somewhere else. He said, but I'm just a little professor. I don't have much money. I can't afford to send you off to school, you'll need to get a scholarship. Well, I got really blessed and lucky, and I got a scholarship to go to the University of the South at Sewanee, Tennessee. And that's where I stumbled across the story of Sewanee's 1899 football team. And the only when I started to make this film, the only thing I knew about that 1899 football team was this great piece of lore, which was, Sewanee played 5 games in 6 days. And as we said at Sewanee, and on the 7th day, they rested. Well, they didn't rest. They went on to go 12-0. It was the first 12-game season ever played in the South. They went on to go 12-0. The only team that even scored on them that season was Auburn University, coached at the time by John Heisman of Heisman Trophy.
Wow.
And I mean, this story, this is the one piece. This is the one record in football history that can never be repeated, because Sewanee got on a steam locomotive. The Sewanee team got on a steam locomotive, went overnight to Austin, Texas, got off the train, played University of Texas, beat Texas, got right back on the train, went to Houston, played Texas A&M, beat Texas A&M, got back on the train, went to New Orleans, played Tulane, got back on the train, went to Baton Rouge, played LSU, got back on the train, went to Memphis, Tennessee, and beat Ole Miss. And so you're talking about 5 games in 6 days on the road by a steam locomotive. And then they go on to go 12-0. And that's why Sewanee was an original member of the SEC, because they were so powerful back in that day.
Wow.
But of course, today, that small school can't compete with the SEC, so they're no longer members of the SEC.
Who was the makeup of this team, looking back player-wise? That must have had to be insane. The talent.
Yeah, the talent was just amazing. And one of the rich parts of it is the guy who crafted this ambitious season was a guy named Luke Lee. And Luke Lee went on, he had this unbelievable life. So you see him cutting his teeth on ambitious projects by crafting this unbelievable season in 1899. He goes on to become the youngest United States senator in history up to that time. He owns the Nashville Tennessean, the newspaper up where you used to live.
Yeah.
He gave the land, 3,000 acres, for Percy Warner Park in Nashville, right next to Belle Meade.
Know it very well.
All that land. He owned all that land. He gave it to the city of Nashville to form Percy Warner Park. Interestingly and revealingly, he didn't name it for himself. He named it for his father-in-law. How many of us would give 3,000 acres and name the park for their father-in-law?
I would, because I got a great father-in-law. I've got a great father-in-law. He's won every award in Arkansas, every humanitarian award, alongside Sam Walton and Joe Ford. I mean, my father-in-law, Charles Nabholz, is like, he's amazing to me. Gandhi. He's Gandhi. But you're right. You would think that most people that are in a situation like that have a little narcissism to themselves, and they can't wait to see their name in lights. It's funny. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about Governor Winter and what that was like working under him.
So, gosh, one of the great blessings of my life was to meet him, and the way I met him was I just wrote him a letter when he was lieutenant governor. I was in college at Sewanee. I wrote him a letter and said, "Hey, I'd like to come down and I've got to do a paper on Southern politics. I'd like to come down and maybe work in your lieutenant governor's office for a couple of weeks and get to see how politics really works, not just in the books and history." And so he said, "Sure, come on down." So I went down there. I lived in the YMCA. They had rooms in the old YMCA. I could live there for $1 a night because I didn't have any money. So so I was there for 2 weeks, and right before I was to leave, Lieutenant Governor Winter said, "Hey, Dave, I won't see you on your last day here in my office. I've got to go to the Gulf Coast and give a speech to the Mississippi Education Association." And so I went that night and did a bunch of research on educational issues facing Mississippi. And the next day I handed him this speech I'd written, and he said, "Well, thank you." And he went back. I went back to my little cubicle, and about an hour later, he calls me in and says, "Hey, Dave, what you've written here is better than what I was planning to say. Do you mind if I incorporate this into my remarks? And I said, no, sir, it's yours. And he said, well, if I'm going to read from your speech that you wrote, you're going with me. And so we flew down to the Gulf Coast. I had never flown. I'm 19 years old. I've never flown in my life.
I love it.
And so my first flight was with Governor, the man who later became governor. And when he ran for governor, he asked me to come down and help manage his campaign and run the media portion of his campaign.
Wow. I mean, you see how it happens? You got to make that effort. I hope young people are listening to this today, because those are the little things that you do in your life that change the entire direction sometimes. I mean, that was a huge part of your history that led you to us having this conversation. There are little things that turn in little what do you call it? Just little moves you make in your life, stepping outside a little box and maybe your comfort zone. It turns into the biggest thing you did that it just blows my mind. I love hearing that. I try to convince the kids at Delta State when I'm working with them that, guys, step out your comfort zone, make a move that's not that you feel like, well, why would I do that? They're going to say no. And when they say yes, it's huge for your career. It gives you a 10-year jump start sometimes.
It's so valuable to take initiative and be a little bit bold and as you say, get outside of your comfort zone. And I tried to instill that in both of my kids, and I think it worked. My son, whose name is Battle Cruz. Battle is the last name in our family, and all that side of the family had all girls. So the only way to perpetuate the family name Battle was to give it to my son as a first name.
I love it.
In fact, the Navy tried to recruit him because he said, "Son, you'll have the coolest name in the United States Navy, Battle Cruz." But he got a pilot's license when he was in high school, and he said, "Dad, I know I can land on any land-based airstrip anywhere in the world. I'm going to go join the Air Force because maybe I can land on the pitching deck of a carrier at night, and maybe I can't." I thought that was a wise
wow,
move.
That is so cool.
He's now a captain in the Air Force. And my daughter is a biologist and conservationist, just got a master's degree from Auburn University and is about to go to work in Clarksville, Tennessee, not far from Nashville, for the Southern Grasslands Institute, doing ecology work.
Yeah, there's a military town there, Clarksville, military base there for sure. I love that. Well, let's take a quick break. Isn't that beautiful? I love seeing our kids take those initiatives, as you said, and where it leads them. Beautiful, beautiful. Visit Mississippi.org. We're celebrating one heck of a filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker, David Cruz. He's hanging out just outside the city limits of Oxford because, he maybe, I don't know. He just said some things about his wife earlier, the way he called her a stray. He may be kicked out of the area he's in. He may have to move over to Tennessee after that. We'll be right back. I'm Steve Azar.
Come on back to Memphis. I'm still trying to find my way.
Up to $20,000 available for first-time home buyers. Hey folks, Steve Azar here. Helping is the heart of our friends at Guarantee Bank. They offer programs like the Home Buyer Equity Leverage Partnership Grant that can assist qualified first-time home buyers with up to $20,000 towards down payment and provide home ownership counseling to empower you on your journey. These funds are first come, first served. Learn more about this program and to apply now, go to gbtonline.com. Guarantee Bank, member FDIC.
Listen and watch all your favorite SuperTalk Mississippi shows live and on demand. Listen to tons of music. Plus, get the latest breaking news from across the state with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Download the SuperTalk app on your iPhone or Android device now for free. Just search SuperTalk Mississippi in your app store on your mobile device to get everything Mississippi all in one place. The SuperTalk Mississippi app. Get it now.
For a flipping good time.
Love my time here with David Cruz, filmmaker, Emmy nominated nationally, Emmy nominated regionally. Did you win the Emmy, David?
For the toughest job, we won a regional Emmy, Southeastern Emmy for the toughest job.
Got it.
And then Eudora was nominated, and Unrivaled was also nominated, and of course, with Eudora, I had this great history with her. I was her New York Times paper boy for 10 years. And have I told you that story?
No, this is unbelievable. Come on with this.
I used to go by Parkins Pharmacy right next to Jitney 14 every day to pick up a New York Times, and every once in a while I'd see Miss Welty in there buying a New York Times. And I said, dang, if Miss Welty wants to read the New York Times, I'll just start buying 2 and I'll just deliver it. And so I started doing it, but I pledged the folks at Parkins Pharmacy where I was buying the papers to secrecy. Don't tell Miss Welty what I'm doing. So I drive my truck about a half block from her house, run across the yard, drop her New York Times on the front doorstep, and go back to work. Well, after about 2 weeks, she comes into the Parkins and says, asked the guy, Bill, behind the counter, Bill, are y'all delivering my New York Times? And he said, no, man, we're not. And I pledged him to secrecy to what I was doing. And so she says, well, it's the oddest thing. It appears on my doorstep every afternoon. Do you know who's delivering it? And he lied and said, no, ma'am, I don't. And so so the next day I'm running across her yard. I dropped the New York Times on her front doorstep. Well, Miss Welty, spunky Miss Welty, had been hiding underneath the steering wheel of her car, which is parked next in a little gravel driveway next to her home there in Bellhaven. And so, when I'm running back across her yard to get to my truck, she flings the door open dramatically, raises up and says, aha, I found you out. And, so she invites me into her home. We go back into her kitchen, and late that afternoon, and she breaks out a bottle of Maker's Mark whiskey, and we have a glass of whiskey and tell stories, which mainly consisted of me listening to her tell stories, because I'm no idiot. I can't tell stories like Miss Welty can tell stories.
Hey, look at this. Look what's in front of me.
What's that?
Listening. Look what's the stage in front of me. I mean, hey, let me tell you what. That's smart. Second of all, you know what you did? You were doing something called the opposite of stealing. I don't even know what you were doing there. What would that be called? Sneaking up on and leaving something. That's pretty cool.
But so Miss Welty had always, reading her great novels and short stories was always an inspiration to me. And then to get to visit with her on a regular basis at her home just was just something really special, and helped lead me to put the Mississippi Book of Quotations together. Beth Henley one time, who wrote the Crimes of the Heart, Mississippi writer Beth Henley, she once said, it's a human need to talk about our lives. And you talk about our lives through your music, and Miss Welty talks about our lives through her literature. And I always remember when I was a child, my great grandmother, who lived to be 103 years old, we called her Mama Ray. She was a niece of LQC Lamar. Her maiden name was Lamar, and she used to always, when I'd go over to Pontotoc to visit with her, she'd always say, Sonny boy, let's go out on the porch and watch the world go by. And what she meant by that, watching the world go by, meant she wanted to tell stories. And so as a youngster, I was getting stories from my elders, and to this day, back then I would write, if my great grandmother said something really rich and powerful, I would write it down. And it'll end up in the Mississippi Book of Quotations. So
I had Johnny Lee Washington raise me. She had a truckload of kids. She's part of my Down at the Liquor Store song. She's a huge part of my life, growing up, because my mom and dad, at the point, by the time I was 4 or 5 children, they were both working together. So when I came along, sports occupied my time, music occupied my time, and Johnny Lee was the rest of the day. And she was God-fearing, and she let me just drive her crazy when I was learning to play guitar and singing. And I mean, she'd just sit there, and she was the one that took me to the Wednesday sermons under the tent sometimes, and in church and all that. And I got to experience that feeling of why she felt that way. And she lived a very, very meek life, very humble life. And I remember going, she's the happiest lady I've ever met in my life. And she was tough, and she dipped bitter Garrett snuff and all this stuff. But I got to tell you, my vivid memories of her, she changed my life. And when we moved back home, our middle son, Adrian, was, as he says, yes, I know I look just like my dad without a tan because he is pale. He's a doctor now, so that's good. He can stay under the indoor lights and not have to worry about being a tan and take care of other people. She had a picture of Jesus, and she had a picture of me behind her wall. And I was going like, first of all, you got to take me off of that anywhere near Jesus. I need to be, somewhere down deep. But she kept grabbing at him because she didn't recognize me. But she was grabbing at him because he looked like me as a kid. And Adrian didn't know what to do. And I said, Adrian, she thinks that you're me. And that was the most beautiful moment. And that was the last time we got to see her. And I'm forever grateful for her. I want to spend another show with you. I'm putting you on the spot because I've got about a list of questions pretty deep that I didn't get a chance to celebrate. And I want to do that on the next show. Do you mind going back to back with me?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation. I fear that your listeners may not be.
Oh, no. I got more listeners today than I ever had. You're the reason. So David Cruz is not the chef. David Cruz is the filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker, doing incredible things celebrating our Mississippi. Visit Mississippi.org. Loves a guy like David. David, I can't thank you enough. Part 1. I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm Steve Azar. In a Mississippi Minute, all 60 of them, where you can take your sweet time.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.